Going into the assembly, now is the time to decide if we're going to use any mate references. So I think I will apply one to the arm just to refresh. You can practice and try a few more. So if I pick the edge, this is going to give me a coincident and a concentric mate when I apply the mate reference. Since, let's see if that's on the S key, under reference geometry mate reference, since I just want the cylinder, the default would be to go concentric. Tangency with a millimeter, 2 millimeters over the diameter, 14 millimeters. That's going to be able to move around a little bit, so don't necessarily want to lock it in. I would like to see it in its preferred state. We have the mate reference and the default, and then we'll save it one more time. So when I go new, assembly metric, then I'm going to bring in the C block first, and I would like for it to be origin to origin, although that looks maybe not quite. There it goes. It moved. It shifted like I expected it to, but its initial position wasn't quite there. All right, and then the next part, let's go ahead and bring in that arm. So let's come over to the File Explorer, since that should be open. And I want to rotate up to where I can see. So if I drag over either of those cylinders, I'm going to see that kind of snap into place. So we have the concentricity. No, I don't want to lock the rotation, and I would like to have it end up being centered. So let's see, I made that 12. So we have a couple of options. Probably the easiest, at least now, is going to be to select and control select and go to a distance of 1 millimeter. And then if I want a what if scenario, I can suppress, and that allows that to move, but retains the mate. So I can try different things without deleting and then deciding that I really wanted it and have to reapply, basically going back and forth. All right, so in the assembly, let's just go to the mate so we can see all of our options. 2021 changed to Mechanical Analysis Advanced. So under the Advanced, that would be kind of handy. We could maybe do symmetric. I think I kind of like the width here because I can select two faces on one part, right, and then go to two faces on the other part, and that will center. All right, so a couple, I would say, let's see, what do we get for a tooltip, or do we for symmetric? So symmetric, since I might want to try that. Let's go ahead and suppress the width, and we'll go back into the assembly and the mate and the advanced. And if I go symmetric, this time I'm actually looking for a symmetry plane, which, because I built this through the top plane, then I can go to those two faces, and that will apply symmetry as well. And just a quick double check. And the last one, because I did midplane and midplane, would be to go into the assembly tab, go into the mates, and if I were to make coincident, do the flyout, go to the top plane of the assembly, expand out the part and select the top plane of the part. Those would just be plain coincident. All right, so nothing fancy. All four of those work in the same way, but given our geometry, there may be advantages later on. All right, so little blue dots, I'm going to go ahead and right click and turn off the view origins. We'll bring in the pin. And if I go Insert Component Existing Part in Assembly, then I can bring in the pivot pin. All right, and so its mate reference, if I was going to apply one, might be this bottom edge so that I could try to locate for that hole. But if we go through this just standard, we'll go concentric. If I bring that up, it should bottom. We didn't put a relief in here, so there ought to be a partial thread where this is not going to quite seat onto the base, and we didn't continue the 14 millimeter. So those are minor mechanical issues that we might want to consider resolving. This still has the ability to turn, so I bypassed, or I missed the little pop-up that said lock rotation. So if I expand out the mates in the assembly, find the concentric, right-click, lock rotation, it's going to put that to whatever position. And threads do not start in very predictable. Even in our best CNC, I could fiddle with it and get it close, but I could not guarantee that each one of those parts, each one of those threads is going to stop at the exact same location. All right, so get it to rotate over, and we'll go, let's see, we did that one, we did that one. If I go to the assembly, there's also insert components, and we'll bring in the lock pin, rough position it. Select the cylindrical face, control select the cylinder. Well, saw it pop up. I'm getting a little button happy there. All right, and it got lost, and there was the lock rotation that I just bypassed. So this might be something that I would want to make tangent. So cylindrical face to the flat would let me go tangent, and if this had any kind of arc to it or change position, it would stay in contact with that arc. And then I bypassed, like I said, I bypassed the pop-up. So if I go to concentric, and the mates at the bottom is the complete list of mates. So distance, width, symmetric, all of those. The little colored in center is that the lock rotation has been applied. And in this case, the center is clear, so we will click on it, and that will cause it to stay in position. All right, so that is our block. We weren't really given a name for this, so and we can make something up for our assembly, and assembly 1 is fine, but something a little more descriptive. So maybe a pivot arm, or again, whatever makes sense. And to get into the exploded view then, the arm is still able to move. We haven't done an angle, so maybe the intent is that this will be held at an angle. So right now it's still in that dynamic position. So if I pre-select 2 faces and go into the angle, depending on how it sees the orientation, I'm going to start with their number and just go to around 150. So 30 degrees off of this face and 60 degrees off of that face. Okay, so going into the configuration and back to the assembly, we can go to the exploded view. Keep in mind that I can right click on the configuration, and new exploded view will do the same thing. I'm going to do these in single steps. So that one comes out far, and we can go to done. And if you like doing the automatic spacing, that's fine. You can go ahead with those. And notice the little mouse icon with the right mouse button return. That will initiate the done. And we'll bring that one up and done. All right, so those are my exploded views. And then somewhere under exploded view, exploded line sketch. And insert, edit, smart explode lines. Well, we will have to try that. First, we're going to go with items to connect. So if I were to pick this cylinder and this cylinder, I should get a connecting line all the way through the part. And then let's just go with this edge, and if it'll let me rotate around, we'll look at the differences between the two, picking the cylinders and the edges. So that jog line, or the lines, have a little bit more functionality. We can expand this out, expand out the exploded view, and there should be the 3D explode. So if it made sense to put a jog line or a little step in this, we would be able to use that functionality. So let's go ahead and collapse, and that will finish out our assembly.